This is the 8th in our series of Golden Dreams programs. Last week we had the full 18-member planning faculty presenting their early perceptions or early visions of Evergreen. Today in the studio there are 3 people here with me. Tina Peterson, who's a student in the Power and Personal Vulnerability program. Wini Ingram, member of the faculty. Which program are you in, Winnie?
Individual contracts.
In individual contracts this quarter. And Pearl Vincent, program secretary. All of you have come to Evergreen since those days way, way long ago. You came after the so-called founding fathers were here, many of whom we have interviewed on the series. And I would like to be able to ask you some questions. And the first question I'd like to invite all of you to talk about briefly is this. When you reflect back to the time that you first came to Evergreen, did you have a sense of a clear vision or a clear definition of what Evergreen was about? Do you think the people who you met, the people who were here ahead of you, could present this kind of definition for you? Would you like to talk about that, Tina? And you might also want to talk about what your early vision was.
Well, I came to Evergreen as a transfer student from WSU the first year that it started. And initially I had a sense of some kind of a vision because of the way the catalog was written and the basic physical structures of coordinated studies and things that were set up. But when I arrived, I immediately sensed a total sense of disorder. There weren't any physical structures to facilitate any kind of a goal or vision, and it was very confused, and I think it led to a lot of confusion on the students' part as to what their vision was.
What could I ask you before we turn, to Winnie and Pearl? What was your vision, and were you disappointed? Was that in conflict in some way with what you saw happening?
Yes, I had anticipated a very intensive studying in an area, whether it be academic or the so-called touchy-feely kind of role. And what I found instead was a confusion between the two. There was, in my program, particularly I was in the ICS, there was a constant battle going on, and so that neither of the two groups could do what they wanted to do intensely. They were fighting among themselves.
I see. We'll come back, and I hope you'll be able to pick that up or talk in terms of the present and the future. But Winnie, I wonder if you would care to respond to this question in terms of way back when you came. And
not so long ago.
2 years.
2 years ago, and it was the second year of the academic program, and the buildings were here. But I had maybe an advantage. Merv Cadwallader and Don Humphrey interviewed me for the faculty, and of course they were on the planning faculty, and I got many views perhaps that one wouldn't get out of the catalog. I was also submerged in paper reading about it. So I had a vision. I guess the major thing that interested me was the promised freedom of teaching style. Particularly, I think, the tutorial sort of thing, the individual contracts and the interdisciplinary aspect, because I've got interests scattered all over the place. I'm jack of all trades and master of none. I'm not even Jack, I suppose. Jill? But anyhow, yeah, I had a vision. It was, well, as visions go, they're not reality, so it wasn't reality, but I haven't been horribly disappointed. As you know, I'm fairly critical about a lot of things that go on around here, but the reason I can be critical is because I love it.
Right. Just before we go to Pearl, I'm curious to know whether what Tina said about there apparently not being a shared, am I right? That
Yeah.
There wasn't a clear definition, that is, in terms of many people. I understood you to say that you had a clear understanding and you spoke with people who did.
I had a vision,
right. But I was wondering if you agreed or disagreed with her perception in terms of what was happening with many people when you first came.
Well, Tina was here the first
Yeah, I
year.
think there's
That's
some
right,
difference.
which is an important point.
And what Merv and Don told me, certainly what she saw going on, there was lots of confusion. Students didn't have places to study. There were no books. The library wasn't open. It was a horrible beginning, I think. And yet, there must have been an awful lot of people who really believed it could work because, well, you're still here.
Yeah.
Right? That's right. Pearl, how about you?
Yes, I had a vision of Evergreen. I had read about it in the Seattle papers and had developed an idea of what I thought the Evergreen dream was: freedom of expression, the freedom to create and to do one's thing in one's own way without really interfering with others. And when I came here, I was interviewed by Ed Cormandy and Bob Bernard, Don Humphrey, and they didn't really change that vision that I had at all in the interview. I had the impression that this was what my job was to be. Was, for instance, if a student walked into my office, a first-year student especially, who might be upset because he'd forgotten to sign a switch form. And I've noticed so many of the students from Washington State will come in and they'll be frightened or apprehensive. And they find they're not going to get hassled because they forgot to do something or because they forgot to return a key. And it's, as I saw it, the vision was not so much emphasis on discipline as on learning, the learning process. I think the vision has changed to some degree as the school has matured. There seems to be more emphasis on policies, procedures, guidelines, and a lot of red tape. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things that I've seen develop. The first year I thought was beautiful. I enjoyed it.
Why don't we pick up on that and wonder if Tina and Winnie, would you like to talk about now for a few moments? And that is, Pearl was contrasting what she sees happening now compared to that early point when she came. How does this compare for the two of you?
I think that what I see now is, well, a lot of the early conflicts seem to have been resolved to some extent in that the school has sort of polarized so that a lot of things are going on at one time and they're not conflicting with each other, and I think that's really good. And because that's happened, there is that chance to do interdisciplinary work very intensely, academic interdisciplinary work, and there's also a chance to go mountain climbing very intensely. And I think that's a really good thing that's happened.
Do you sense any of this bureaucracy problem that Pearl was talking about?
Yeah, there is quite a lot, but I don't know. I haven't really run into that much, I guess. I know there is some, and I haven't really tried to switch programs or anything, so I haven't run into it.
Right. They've been saved.
Yeah.
Winnie?
I think it's inevitable that there's going to be some red tape. I think maybe we've got too much, but that may be just a developmental problem. We need guidelines, and I think one of the most difficult jobs that Evergreen has to do is to be an organized place while being at the same time a place where freedom can be used. No, I don't want to use the word freedom, liberty, freedom within a disciplined organization. And I get frustrated with the lack of guidelines sometimes and the fact that everybody wants to be innovative. And I sometimes think the term creative and innovative is a real trap here, that things which were invented, which really work, which are, should I say the word efficient? But I think this is what you'd like to see sometimes, so that you could go in a straight line, you wouldn't have to wander all around.
Yes.
I have some current gripes, that are innovative.
I'd like to pose one more question, and then we'll have to close soon. And that is, what do you feel, what do the three of you feel, as you look to the future, what do you feel should be some important goals, directions, either changes or continuations, to go back to what you were saying, Winnie, that really help to define what you think Evergreen should be about or is about? if you were in the position to, say, all right, now here's a really important direction. This is what's distinctive about this place. Let's really go after it. What would you advise Charlie McCann, God, to whom it may concern, to do? Us, everybody.
Well, I think the first thing I'd advise us to do is to remember that to get out of that chaos you're speaking about, that we need to set up guidelines, but we should also remember that those guidelines can be torn up and thrown away at any time. And people are very hesitant to set down those guidelines because they're afraid they're going to become standards.
Do you have any positive goal? That, in a way, is something, that maybe not... Is there something that you feel should be a goal beyond that, an academic goal or any other kind of goal?
I'm not sure.
It's okay, you may want to think about it.
Yeah, I'd like to think about that for a minute.
Winnie?
Well, I would really like to see this become the very best college on the West Coast. Now, that's a great big ambition. I understand that the Board of Higher Education sort of sees us as possibly the college for Southwest Washington. There may be some reasons for that, but I would like Evergreen to continue to be the kind of a college that's going to attract people who really want to get on an intellectual binge, who are looking for jobs, yes, but a place where we develop the mind and develop critical minds, because I think that critical minds can go any place in the world.
Pearl, thank you.
I firmly believe that Evergreen should have more emphasis on the academic area. It seems to me that there are a lot of areas where academics is overruled. They're not allowed to continue in a learning situation because partly of the red tape. I suppose I run into that more because I get the feedback from students, other staff, and the faculty. And too often I find that the learning process has been strangled by red tape. And I really think the faculty, the students, and the staff with their help should realize that the student is what Evergreen is all about. And academics has a responsibility to that student to let him learn, not to throw rocks in his path.
Right. Well, thank you all very much. I wish we had more time, but it was really wonderful having you here and talking about goals and dreams. Thanks again.